Hi there, and welcome to part 2 of this video series. The topic here is the reverse rewind technique. Now, in order for this technique, for you to really grasp the magnitude of the importance of using it, I really would like you to think about this scenario first, and then really think about how you would respond, because that way it could really have the most effective use for you. So you have a 4-year-old, either a boy or a girl, and you know how it's just a little too quiet and you're wondering, well, I wonder what they're up to. And you walk in the kitchen and there's water all over the floor and a big pitcher on the floor and a cup. And you walk in and this is what you're seeing. This 4-year-old with this big mess all over the floor. What is your initial reaction to that situation? So I just want you to stop and think about it, write it down, write your real answer, because the only way this is going to be effective and the only way that you're going to really be able to get the most out of this video is to be honest and truthful about what you would really do in that situation. Then at the ending, I'm going to walk you through the process with the technique and to hopefully give you a different set of tools to be able to handle that situation that would be more effective and also more pleasant for the child and for you. So the reverse rewind technique is a 2-step process. And basically, the first step is to reverse your emotion in that situation. So if you're walking into something and you're instantly very, very upset, reverse it to something else to where you can communicate on a different level and not out of anger or disappointment or anything that's kind of on a negative side. So reverse your emotion is the first step. The second step is to rewind. What the rewind means is to actually rewind yourself from your personal experiences, your life experiences, your age, your education, whatever the situation, you'll be able to understand it as you evaluate the situations that come in that you're challenged with. You're going to be able to know, okay, I need to rewind my education level and meet them at that level. Or I need to rewind my age and understand what they're going through at this time in their life. So you're going to be able to understand what you need to rewind. So that's a 2-step process. Step 1, reverse your emotion in the moment, and step 2, rewind yourself to their level. Now, how does this really work? I mean, what does this really mean? Well, I have 4 examples here, real life examples that I have actually used this technique before I really polished it and made it a real technique that I was going to share with other parents and educators. And the first one is I call the eraser boy. And basically what happened was I was working at an elementary school before I went back to college. I got a job at my daughter's school, and I was a parent community network coordinator. And basically, I was the person to provide support with the students on campus, the parents, the community, and the faculty and staff. And so basically, anybody ever needed anything, or if there was an issue with something, I would try to step in and try to create a solution for it. And if it was donations, I would go out into the community and try to help get that need met. Well, so I took my job very seriously, and I really loved my job. And actually, by doing this job is what led me to understand that I really wanted to make a difference in children and teens' lives. And I really wanted to use different approaches to find solutions in their everyday challenges and struggles. And also provide parents with different set of tools to communicate better and to connect better with their child or teen. So let's go into example number 1, and it's Eraser Boy. So he walked into the office, and he had his head down, and his hands were in his pocket, and he was very sad. and I was just walking by the desk, and I said, "Oh, hi, why are you so sad?" And he put his head down and he said, "Well, I lost my eraser, Miss Gonsalves." And I said, "Oh, you lost your eraser." And at that moment, the principal, who is my boss, walked out. And she stood there and she looked at me and she said, "Celeste, I need to go into a meeting right now." And I said, "Oh, it's okay. I can handle this." So I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you lost your eraser and that makes you sad?" "Yes, I'm so sad. I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, I have a box of erasers at my desk from a school supply drive that I did a couple of weeks before that. So I had extra supplies." So I told him, "If you come back to my desk, you get to pick whatever color eraser that you would like. What do you think about that?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I would like to do that." So he walked back where my desk was located, and he picked a green eraser, and he put it in his pocket, and he looked at me, and he said, "Thank you." I said, "Oh, you're very welcome. Now go and enjoy the rest of your recess." So he walked out, and he enjoyed the rest of his recess. So later that day, toward the ending of the day, the principal called me into her office. And my first thought was, what did I do now? Why am I getting called into the principal's office? But she called me in there to ask me what happened in that situation and what I chose to do. And I sat there and I looked at her and I said, "So I still had erasers left over from the school supply drive that we did a few weeks ago. I allowed him to look through the box and pick the one that he wanted. He picked a green one, he put it in his pocket, and he went out and he enjoyed the rest of his recess." And she said, "Okay." And then she said, "So why did you do it that way?" And I said, I haven't been working here very long, but I have had enough time to observe how the adults here interact with the child. And what I have come to realize is that they're talking down to them instead of trying to meet them halfway on their level. So let me give you this example. I told my principal this. I told my boss this. So he's in 2nd grade, which means he's 7 years old, and he lost his eraser. So to us, because we have life experience and we know that to us it's not a big deal. But if we tell a 7-year-old it's not a big deal, we don't validate his or her feelings, experiences, or stress that they may have because they lost the eraser. Because as a grown-up, we're thinking, well, so you lost your eraser, big deal, right? Because nothing's going to happen. But how about we reverse our emotion in it, which means we take the judgment out and we try to come in with an open mind in this situation. So let's do that first. And the second one is, let's rewind ourselves to 7 years old in 2nd grade, losing our eraser. What would that mean? What might that mean for this 7-year-old boy? He was a little boy. And so I thought, does it mean that when he goes back to class, he can't make a mistake? Does it mean he has to take a test when he goes in and he's more stressed already and now he doesn't have his eraser in case he wants to change his answer? Does it mean he borrowed the eraser from someone and he doesn't know how to pay them back? Does it mean it was his lucky eraser and it meant a lot to him? What does it mean to him? I mean, right now, he's 7 years old. He can't enjoy recess because he lost his eraser. It's a big deal to him in that moment. And as adults, we need to understand their point of view from their life experiences thus far. He's been on this earth for 7 years. I mean, I can tell you the last 7 years what I've been doing and how much growth I've had. So that gives you kind of puts it in perspective and to see that the timeline and understand, okay, this may be, really, I can create a different approach to this and understand them. And in the long term, what happens is that you connect better with the child and their situation, and then they become validated for their struggles, and then a solution can be created because you would understand the situation from their point of view. So that is example 1, the eraser boy. Example 2 of the reverse rewind technique that I personally use also is on the same campus that I worked at. And what happened was, this girl was in 1st grade, and recess was just over, and I was walking on campus. I just coming out of a classroom from a teacher who needed some materials that I was delivering to her classroom. And I was walking out, and I saw this little girl crying. She was in 1st grade, and all the students were lining up against the wall. And I walked by, and I stopped her, and I said, "Why are you crying? Why are you so upset? Please tell me what's going on." And she looked at me, she looked up to me, and they were required to all sit down on the concrete and line up after recess and after lunch recess and wait for their teacher to come back to class to unlock the door. So that was the routine, and that was the policy at our school that I worked at. And so the girl looked at me and she said, "I'm crying because I'm last in line and I don't like to be last." And she continued to cry, and she felt really bad about it. So I stood there and I said, "Okay." So I sat right behind her, fully dressed in my business clothes, sat down on the concrete, and then all the kids started laughing, like, "Miss Gonsalves, what are you doing?" And I folded my hands like this, and I said, "I'm sitting down." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Because now I'm last in line, and now she doesn't have to cry anymore." And so she put her hands up like this, and she went, "Oh, Miss Gonsalves, you're so funny." And she started laughing. But her tears, she got to wipe her tears away. She was no longer upset. She could go back in the classroom and concentrate on her schoolwork. And it was done. It was, of course, the teacher came, and she was like, "Celeste, what are you doing?" And I said, well, she was crying and she was upset because she was last in line. And so I sat down after her so that I was last in line, because I didn't want to see her upset anymore. And of course the teacher rolled her eyes, because she's just an old school teacher, and that was not her technique or her approach. But I just wanted to show this little girl that I validated what she was going through, and that I could quickly create a solution that made everybody happy, and it didn't cost me anything. And then all the kids were able to stand up and walk into class, and then I walked back to my desk, and it was done. But the impact it made, what was the takeaway for the student, for the 6-year-old girl? She was like, "Miss Gonsalves sat on the concrete in her nice dress so that I didn't have to be last anymore." Huge impact, right? Again, reverse your emotion and rewind your life experience. What I did in that moment was rewind my thought process to being 6 years old. And remember when you're on campus and you never wanted to be last. You don't want to be picked last. You don't want to be last in line. You never want to be last in a lunch line. You just don't want to feel last, because then that brings an emotion of feeling like you're less than, or you're not good enough, or you're the leftovers because you're last. So in that situation, that was the solution that I thought of instantly. Like, okay, I'm just going to sit on the concrete and make this girl happy. And I knew the teacher was not going to appreciate my efforts, but I wasn't trying to connect with the teacher. She's a grown-up. I was trying to connect with the 6-year-old, which made an impact in her life. Even if it was just for the next 5 minutes, it didn't matter to me. So that is example 2. The last in line girl, that's what I call that. So example 3 is probably one of the ones that I just loved, because it was another simple. All of these actually are very simple ways, simple approaches to creating a solution for a child that really doesn't cost you much. Maybe time and a little bit of energy and a little bit of thinking, But other than that, the outcome of it, really, you're making an outstanding experience for the child. So this little girl, she kindergarten, so she's 5 years old. She doesn't want to come to school. And coincidentally, her mom and I went to school together. So it was in the morning recess, and she was late for school again. And I was walking past them, and I said hi to the mom. And then she said, Celeste, I just don't know what to do with her. She doesn't want to come to school. She's late every morning. She gives me such a hard time. You know, she cries, and she just doesn't want to come to school. So I looked at her, and I said, oh, and I looked at the little girl, and I said, wow, you don't like to come to school? And she said, no, I don't want to be here. And so I looked at the mother. Like I said, I grew up with the mother, right, from like intermediate school. So we went to intermediate school and high school together. So we pretty much knew each other pretty well. And so she looked at me in the eyes and she said, Celeste, can you help me? And I said, sure. So I bent down to the level of the 5-year-old, and I looked her in the eyes, and I looked at her and I said, if you don't come to school, you're going to break my heart. Do you want me to cry? Because I feel so sad when you're not here. And so she started laughing. And she said, Miss Gonsalves, you're so funny. I said, well, if I can't see you, then I can't do my job here. And then I'm just going to be so sad. So I tell you what, I'm going to make a deal with you. And so she started smiling, and she said, well, what are you going to do for me, Miss Gonsalves? I said, I am going to visit you in your class every single day for 1 week. And I'm going to say hi to you, and only you, because you are so special to me, and I want to be able to see you so that I can go back to my desk and get my work done. And then my heart will be full. She looked at me and she said, okay. I said, it starts tomorrow. Remember, you need to be here on time, and I will visit you in your classroom. Okay. And so she went to school that day, and she didn't, and nothing, there wasn't going to be anything special happen that day because she came to school late. So you can't reward something that, you know, she was already at school late. So I didn't visit her class that day. But the next day, I was at my desk and I was watching the time, and I watched the tardy log to make sure that she wasn't late for school first, because I worked in the office so I could see that. Then I left my desk and I walked to her classroom, and I peeked in the window and I looked at her and I waved to her, and she just got the biggest thrill. She was like laughing and giggling, and she waved to me, and then she went on and she did her classwork. Then the next day, the same thing. I did it every single day for 5 days. I completed my promise to her. And then after about the second or third day, the mom came to visit me in the office, and she said, Celeste, what you did was, it was just amazing. She gets up in the morning, she gets herself dressed. I gotta be on time because Miss Gonsalves is going to meet me in my classroom, and she's going to say hi to me, and I have to be there. And it just changed her whole focus and everything, and she was in school after that. And even though it was only for 5 days, she already started to develop the pattern and the routine to just get up and get going and get to school on time, that she continued it on. And the mom was like, I can't thank you enough, Celeste. I have no problems now getting her to school. I said, oh, no problem. You're welcome. Just the simple things that we all can do to make a difference in a child's life and how they view things, and just make her feel special, extra special, only waving to her, and just creating that solution right there. The mom is not stressed anymore. The child is not acting out anymore, is on time, is getting the best and the most out of her education because she's in her seat where she's supposed to be on time. So that is example number 3, the girl that was always tardy for school and didn't want to come to school. Example 4 is a little different because it wasn't about creating a solution for the child. It was, but it was actually done in an indirect manner. So it sets up where I took my neighbor's son to his swim lesson. And my friend was a single dad, and he had a prior commitment. And so I told him I would help him with his son. And he was 5 years old, and he goes to these swim lessons. So I have to, when you take the child at that young, you have to sit and wait and watch. So I was sitting in the bleachers and waiting for the swim lessons to end. And toward the ending, what happened was the instructor was yelling at him about horseplaying in the swimming pool and jumping on another one of the students in the swimming pool, and kind of roughhousing, just the boys really being rough in the swimming pool, climbing on each other, and you're in a pool and you just want to splash and have a good time with your friends. And so I came around the corner and she was yelling at him, and I didn't appreciate it. So I looked at the boy and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you cannot do that here, but it's time to go anyway, so let's get you out of the swimming pool and you go change your clothes and I'll be with you in a minute." And the instructor started yelling at me. So I turned and looked at her and I said, "Excuse me, but where he lives, there's a swimming pool in our complex. And when he is in that swimming pool, he's allowed to play like that. So he has to learn how to understand that that's okay when he's at home in his swimming pool, but when he's in swim lessons, that is not okay. So he just thinks that he's in a pool and he can play like that. So we're going to let him know that that is not acceptable in this swimming pool." And so she just kind of like was stunned that I said that to her. And then I left and he changed his clothes and I took him home and I saw the father and I said, "So this is what happened at swim lessons today." And I explained to him the situation that I just explained to you. And he said, "Really? And what did that lady say?" I said, well, she just was kind of quiet because she didn't expect me to say anything back to her. But, it's like, you just have to understand, like, he's 5 years old. Okay, these are the rules, but you don't have to yell at him and speak to him like the way that she was speaking to him. I just didn't appreciate it. She's like, "Wow, that's amazing how you can understand that he may think that it's okay because that's what he does over here when we're at home in a swimming pool on our complex." I go, exactly. It's understanding what his experience is at being 5 years old. Again, the reverse rewind technique used, but not really for the child, but for the situation with the swim instructor and her attitude that I didn't really appreciate. But I didn't have to confront her with anything. I just simply told her, this is probably what he thinks, and I'm gonna let his father know, and that he is going to make sure that he understands the difference. And that's that. Like, it's done, lady, And so that is example 4 of the reverse rewind technique. I'm actually going to give one more because I really want for you as a parent to understand that this reverse rewind technique can be used on a child of any age. So even as young as 3 years old, actually. 3 years old, all the way up to the school age, or preteen, teenager, young adult, college age, and even maybe in the early 20s. Sometimes you can even use it with your coworkers or anything when there's some kind of conflict or you don't understand something. Maybe you can just reverse your emotion in a situation. So maybe you're frustrated with him or her, and then you can rewind something that maybe you think doesn't measure up to their life experience, or maybe it's their age, or maybe it's their education level, and then understand their point of view from their perspective. So this 4th one is actually it's actually a young adult, and he's 21 years old. And how I came across this was I went to Maui to do a one-on-one interaction with a teenager there, with a 15-year-old boy. and a friend of mine, it was a friend of mine's family, a friend of mine's friend's family that was having some struggles with their teenager, the 15-year-old boy, and they were very concerned about his choices and what he may start to do to alleviate his pain and suffering and the struggles. Basically, they were concerned that he was going to start to try drugs and alcohol because he was really in a state of pain and discomfort for his situation. So I came in and I worked on that situation, and then coming out of it, my friend found out all the information that I was able to communicate with the teenager, as well as what I was able to get the teenager to communicate with me. So he was sharing this information with his bartender friend at this restaurant. And he said, my friend, she understands all this teen stuff. She wrote a book, and maybe you should talk to her, about your son. I know your son is 21, but it doesn't matter. And so the following week, I actually went back there and I talked to this father. And I said, so what is the situation, and what is the result? What do you want to see change for your family dynamics and for your son? And so he said, well, he's 21 years old. He lives in my garage. He only works part-time, and we want him to live on his own. We want him to be on his own, and he doesn't want to leave. And I said, okay. And so I asked him a few questions, and every time I asked him a question, the father had not an answer, but an excuse for the child's behavior or the child's choices, or I should say his son's choices, because he is 21 years old. So then I looked at the father and I said, so is this how this is going to work? Any suggestion or question that I ask, you're going to provide me with an excuse for your son? Because then if you're not going to be open to any suggestions or anything, then the conversation is going to be over. Now, he's taking my time, my knowledge, my experience, my best set of tools that I use and that I teach. And I'm doing this as a favor. And every single thing I'm saying to him, he's like, bucking me, I guess you could say. And I was just like, I don't have time for that. Like, if you really want my information and my advice and my guidance, then you need to be open to it, So then finally I said to him, listen, just tell me what is it that you want. And then I will create a concrete plan of action for you. And if you decide to move forward with it or not, that's up to you. But this is all I can offer you right now. He said, okay, sure. He said, we want him to move out. Me and my wife, we've raised him already. We're done. We want him to move out. I said, okay, but you've also told me that he's only worked part-time. Yeah, he has some injuries and he's worked part-time. I said, okay, so does it pay you any rent right now? Yeah, he gives us like maybe $200 a month or something, when he can. I said, okay, so does he have a fancy phone? Does he have a car? Does he use his money on other things because he's only paying you $200 a month when he feels like it or when he feels that he can afford to? Because there's a shift in responsibility there. In other words, he's being able to purchase all his pleasurable items, a fancy phone, a car. He has a girlfriend, so he's taking her out. But he's not taking care of the one responsibility that all of us parents and adults have to. It's rent or mortgage comes first, and luxuries later when all the other bills are paid. So my plan for you is to create something that he's going to be successful at. So basically, successful and not stressed. So when he starts to work full-time, you need to increase his rent up until amount that is going to keep steady at. So how much rent would you like to see him pay? And the father said $500. I said, okay. So then let's start at that $200 mark, and he's only working part-time. But really make it known that that is mandatory. It's required for him to pay $200 a month rent every single month. And as the months go on, and as he increases the amount of time on his job to full time, then you increase the amount of rent that he needs to pay you. And do this for maybe 6 or 8 months, okay? And in the meantime, you've already shared with me that his expenses are really low as far as how much you actually spend for him every month on food and all that. So put either all of it or a portion of it on the side as a savings account for him. And he looked at me and he said, okay. And he goes, and then what? I said, and then then the father said, oh, okay. And then after that, after the time limit is up, I give him all the money and I just tell him, okay, you're on your own, and you go out and you go find your own place. And I looked at him and I said, no, that is not what I'm going to say. He was like, well, why not? I said, because you have to understand his life experience. So you're thinking he's 21, he's an adult, and he should get it, and he should understand this. He goes, yeah. I said, but he's never done it before. So think about it this way. He's 21. He's been out of high school for 3 years. He goes, oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I go, yeah, so we're not talking about kicking him out and giving him the money and letting him figure his life out. We want to create a plan that is going to be successful for him. So put the money on the side. Maybe it may take 6 or 8 months. And then walk him through the process because he's never done it before. Look online. Look for a place for him. Maybe he's going to rent a room. Maybe he's going to get roommates together. Visit the place. Interact with the landlords. Show him what he needs to do to become this responsible adult that you want him to be, but he doesn't know how to be yet. So interact with him with the landlord. Teach him the questions to ask when you want to go rent a place. Teach him how to be responsible in that scenario. Provide all the tools he needs to succeed, not to fail, to succeed. And so then the father looked at me and he said, okay, I understand. I get it now. I understand what you're saying. I said, yeah, and that's it. And that is what I would suggest you do in that situation. And also I would suggest that you stop making excuses for your son, because you are not providing him an opportunity to grow as not only as a person, as an adult, but as a contributor to society. And that's really what you want, right? And he said, yeah, that's what I want. I want him to be, yeah, that's what I want. I said, then you need to just teach him the tools and walk him through the process. And you don't need to judge or anything, because until you know better, you don't know how to do better. And so that was my advice to him in that situation. Now let's circle back to the very first scenario I gave you. You're walked into the kitchen and there's a 4-year-old, either it's a boy or a girl, whatever it is that fits into your family, and there's water all over the floor, and there's a pitcher on the floor and a cup. And I asked you to be totally honest in your reaction and write down what you would do and how you would feel in that moment, before I even told you what the reverse rewind technique was. So now revisit that situation and think about how you would respond in that situation. So there's key elements that can make or break the situation in that scenario. And basically the goal right here, right now, for that situation, the goal of the outcome is what is going to be the takeaway for the 4-year-old. So one of two things can happen. Either you're going to encourage them to try again, or you're going to break their spirit by being mad at them and punishing them. So actually, I really want you to understand this, because we've all been there. And the learning curve process takes practice. So, I mean, seriously, We've all started new jobs. We've all went to school or wanted to learn a new skill or something. And what if we were in a situation like that and we were trying to do it and the teacher was reprimanding us because we didn't do it right the first couple of times? How would we feel? We wouldn't like it, right? And then what would be the outcome? Well, why should we try if we're going to be wrong? You know, this takes practice. You know, you may look at your teacher and like, look, I just started. I don't know how to do this yet. Same thing for a 4-year-old who wants to be bigger than what they are and wants to start to do things on their own. He or she thought I could take the pitcher of water out of the ice box, pour it in the cup myself, and no one needs to help me because I'm either a big boy or a big girl. I'm going to do it on my own. And then what happens? Something happened and it spilled all over the floor. And now they're standing there and the parent is coming into the kitchen looking at that, and what is the response? Are you gonna respond and react with anger and be mad? What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? I told you how many times not to do that. Now look at this mess that you've done. You better clean up this mess right now. And after that, go straight to your room. So reverse rewind. Now think about, actually, I just want you to rewind right now. Think about the 4-year-old. All I did was try, and I'm in trouble and I have to clean this up. And how does a child feel inside? Broken. The spirit is broken. They tried to do something. They're trying to grow. They're trying to learn. They're trying to develop their own skill set. And they're being shot down by their efforts. So the better response, I'm not going to use the word correct because I'm not here to tell you what is right or wrong. I'm going to present it in a manner that a better response or a different approach, I should say, would be to walk in and to say, oh, I see that you tried to pour your own water. I see you tried really hard and something happened and the water ended up spilling all over the floor. I understand that because everybody makes mistakes, but I'm so glad that you tried. So I'm going to help you clean this up. And then maybe the next time you want to do this on your own, maybe you could just let me know so that I could just be there. You can do it on your own, but I just want to be able to help you until you can do it all by yourself. So what is the takeaway for the child in that situation? The child looks up at you and thinks, wow, I tried. Everybody makes mistakes. My mom or my dad is going to help me clean this up. And I'm encouraged to try again because it's okay. And that is the most important because you want the child and their focus to feel like I matter, I tried, and I'm going to try again till I get it right. And it's going to be okay because I'm not going to be punished for trying. So that is the reverse rewind technique. You can use it in any situation that when you're dealing with a child from 3 all the way up to 21, 22 years old. And like I even mentioned earlier, co-workers or anybody that you're having some kind of conflict with, before you react and want to just compare yourself to them, instead maybe rewind yourself and understand where they're coming from. This has been the second part of this video series, the reverse rewind technique. And then we're going to go into part 3.